Good morning and welcome to our panel. This morning we'll discuss how digital technology has more than proven itself to help across the industry, especially during recent tough times, but we should be considering what could or should happen next. Are organizations culturally ready for full transformation, and which technologies are going to make the next big impact? In this panel, we'll discuss what we mean by digital transformation within the oil and gas industry, what the challenges and pitfalls and impediments are in doing digital transformation, what the enablers are, and what represents success in digital transformation. Here with me to discuss some of the key issues around digital transformation in the oil and gas world are Masood Al-Hamadi, Head of Exploration and Production at Sharjah National Oil Corporation, Syed Adnan Ali, former Project Management, IT Service Management and Enterprise Architect for Qatar Petroleum, Sunatan Atallah, Technical and Professional Lead for the Kuwait Oil Company, and Dr. Steve Griffiths, Senior Vice President, Research and Development, Professor of Practice at Khalifa University. We look forward to taking your questions too. Shortly, I'll ask the panel to discuss their roles and what their experience is of digital transformation in their role. But first, a few thoughts from me. Even before the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic, the energy industry had been undergoing profound technological disruption. The rise of renewable energy, improvements in battery storage, a strong push for a hydrogen economy, and the electrification of transport represents opportunities for transformation as well as a fundamental competitive threat. These new technologies, combined with digitization, can bring new skill sets and cost efficiencies to the energy sector. Seen in this context, the impact of COVID-19 over the last year represents one more challenge in the complex set of issues the sector has already been grappling with. For the oil and gas sector, the pursuit of cost efficiencies has never been more urgent. Digitization, while no magic bullet, is the key enabler in successful transformations. But you could say oil and gas companies have been rather slower to adopt digital applications and operations so far. In order to deepen their digital transformation, they will need to grasp the full extent of what this entails. It's not just about technology, but also upskilling people, changing the working culture, and understanding where digital technologies can significantly boost the sustainability and efficiency of operations. These will be the essential components for making oil and gas companies more competitive, more efficient, more connected to suppliers, and more responsive to the needs of customers, resulting in a broader revenue base and improved profitability. The pandemic dealt a further blow to an industry that was already struggling to find its footing. When an industry faces a systemic shock of this magnitude, there could be a temptation to cut programs that do not immediately contribute to cash flow. However, oil and gas companies should resist the urge to shelve digital transformation programs, as these will hold the key to improving efficiency, driving profitability, and managing their sustainability and low carbon agendas. More oil and gas executives are aware of the gains to be had from digitization. According to PwC Strategy's digital operations study of oil and gas companies, industry leaders anticipate digital applications will deliver on average a 10% increase in revenue due to increased production and reduced time to project startup, and an 8.5% decrease in costs from improved operational efficiency over the next 5 years. Well, how should they do it? Well, I think you'll get some strong insight from our esteemed panel today. So let me ask them to introduce themselves, their role and their experience of digital transformation, starting with Masood Al-Hamadi, Head of Exploration and Production at Sharjah National Oil Corporation. Masood, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. David. Good morning, all. Yes, as you mentioned, I'm Masood Al-Hamadi, working for Sharjah National Oil Corporation, we call it SNOC. For last 16 years, I'm working in the same asset, petroleum background, petroleum engineering background. SNOC established in 2010, took over the operation, the asset from Amoco, then BP. My role is, by the title, is exploring gas condensate field within Emirate of Sharjah, filling the very big gas plant and gas network in the Northern Emirates. So we have a very difficult time, and we have ambition to explore more fields. We recently discovered a new field after 4 decades. It's an exciting time for us. to develop this field. And we can talk about details how digital transformation was a key part of this growth. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, Masood. That was great. Adnan, perhaps you'd like to talk about your role, your project management, IT service management, and enterprise architect role at Qatar Petroleum, and what your experience was of digital transformation there.
Yeah, hi, David. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning and welcome everyone. I have been working with Qatar Petroleum for more than 15 years, and now I'm working as an independent consultant, doing digital transformation projects, managing and leading across different industries, and mainly in oil and gas. And today we would be discussing the trends and the technologies which empower digital transformation, as well as we will talk about the winning strategies which can help the sector to overcome the challenges and to meet and exceed the expectations from digital transformation.
Thank you very much, Adnan. That was very good. Sunatan Atala, technical and professional lead, Kuwait Oil Company. Would you like to talk about your role and your company and just a brief summary of your experience of digital transformation?
Thank you, David. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to everybody. First of all, I'm Sunatan Atala. I'm working with Kuwait Oil Company for the last 17 years. I'm under project services team and as a TBL specialist one. And I'm responsible to deliver a project for support services group from all stages, from design until the closure of the project. Also, to my role, I have a role to develop and train our UD's newcomer engineer and under development engineers. So this part is one of my role. And in this subject, we have developed or make initiative during our team for training of the UDs. And I would like to talk about this initiative, which is e-learning. There is an application now. We have it in our group. We call it e-learning. So this is linked to the digital transformation technology. So I would like to talk to it in a second after this. Thank you.
Okay, that's fine. Yes, I look forward to going into the e-learning sort of project. As we go through the panel, and we'll spend a bit of time talking about that. And looking forward to hearing that. Thank you very much. And Steve, last but not least, you're Senior Vice President Research and Development, Professor of Practice at Khalifa University. Would you like to talk to us a little bit about yourself and your role and your experience of digital transformation, please?
Sure. Thanks, David. It's a pleasure to be here. I appreciate the invitation. So I'm Steve Griffiths, Senior Vice President, Research and Development at Khalifa University, as David mentioned. Khalifa University, for those that are not familiar, was formed in 2017 through the merger of the Masdar Institute, the Petroleum Institute, and the Khalifa University of Science, Technology, and Research. All three universities in Abu Dhabi very much focused on R&D, coming together to create essentially one monolithic university, which was going to be really accelerating us to develop types of R&D that we need indigenously here in the country to take many sectors forward. My role at Khalifa as the SVP R&D is to, one, develop a strategy for research, and secondly, deliver that strategy so we meet the objectives of Abu Dhabi and its key industrial aspirations. I'm not going to get into all the research areas that we cover. I'd say two for this particular discussion that are very relevant. One is the oil and gas sector, so we call it hydrocarbon exploration and production. That's a legacy from the Petroleum Institute, one of the universities that merged into the new KU. We cover everything from upstream to midstream, gas processing and the like, into downstream chemicals, petrochemicals. So the entire value chain of the oil and gas sector is one area of research. The other, which relates very strongly to what we're talking about today, is our robotics and intelligent systems area. So everything around artificial intelligence, robotics, ICT, and the more advanced sense of ICT, sensors, cybersecurity, next generation networks, and then of course data science. These are all areas that we're bringing together as a platform to support what we call the verticals, one of the verticals being oil and gas. So it's the Khalifa University, the research that we're putting together around the digital space is to try to leverage these evolving, maturing digital technologies in sectors which need them to become better at what they do. And that, I would say, is very closely tied into what the oil and gas sector is trying to achieve with digitalization. In addition to the roles I'm doing at Khalifa University in 2020, it's a very interesting, I think, relevant discussion point at some time in the meeting here today. Microsoft formed an energy core, which is essentially a consortium of industry, government, academia that comes together to try to accelerate digitalization in the oil and gas sector. And I'm a board member on behalf of Khalifa University and essentially on behalf of academia, trying to give a perspective of how the university can contribute to research and manpower development for the digitalization of oil and gas. So with that background, I look forward to our more in-depth discussion. Thank you, David.
Great, thank you, Steve. That was excellent. So let's look at our first question, and perhaps we could sort of go around and just get a view from everyone on what we actually mean by digital transformation in the oil and gas sector. You know, from a top line picture, what do you see as as what we mean by digital transformation in the oil and gas sector, and then we'll go down further into that in terms of where it's taking place and how far developed it is and those sort of questions. But who'd like to sort of kick off and just talk about what we mean by digital transformation as you see it? Perhaps Steve, could you give us your view?
Sure, I'll go first. So I think there's two parts to the question. One is the digital part and one is the transformation part. On digital, to me, it's all about trying to bring your operations into an electronic state where you're collecting the information, you're making it available to your workers across the organization so they become more efficient in whatever job they're doing. You know, it's trying to really bring work away from paper and away from just people into systems which can provide some kind of support for the types of analyses we need to do. On the transformation side, once we understand the technological part of digital, transformation gets a little bit more challenging because transformation to me is not just doing things digitally, it's about becoming digital. So when I say doing things digitally, you get your information into online systems, maybe in the cloud. You're leveraging that data across different platforms. You may have some drone technologies, robotics, you may have VR, virtual reality, augmented reality, whatever it may be. But you don't just want to do the proof of concept. You don't just want to do one-off projects, which don't add ultimate value to your bottom line. To become digital, I would say the most important factor is to have a strategy which brings digital into the heart of it. So you think about all the things you need to do to create a better business that digital can support. You think about all the data that you need in order to do those things digitally. You think about the systems that need to house the data. It could be cloud systems, the analytics that could run on that cloud. Will it be an internal cloud, an external cloud? And finally, think about the manpower. Who is going to actually do all this? Do you have the people and do you have the culture that is able to adopt digital and do it well? If you get the strategic part right and you're doing the technological part, I think you've got the ability to do digital transformation.
Okay, thank you very much. That set the scene very well. So, Masood or Adnan, would you like to come in and add to that and paint a further description of that as you see it?
Yeah, digital transformation.
Sure, go ahead.
Sorry.
Go on, Masood.
Yeah, in oil and gas, digital transformation is become now key for the development. And so in our fields, the ability to gather the data and interpret and analyze all these data in a faster and efficient, with an optimized way, which add a value for a significant value for the decision makers. So on daily basis, we have massive collecting data. So I would say every minute, not even daily. So we need to utilize this data for our growth. This is generic. So I will give you the example that we used to have massive data, legacy data that we had to digitize it. Talking about 600 boxes of paper, you need to digitize it to make useful for your growth part of the organization. and use it for new projects. So as you know, the uncertainty in oil and gas is high, so you need to really use this information, digitize it, analyze it, and use it for your business as you go. So we know that oil and gas a little bit slow in this digital transformation, but we will talk about later about last year, or still we are in pandemic, that how it's fast track this movement towards the digital transformation. So yeah, so it's very, very important for any organization to move in this direction. So there are a lot of opportunities that you will find when you really use the technology to foster your business and development of the business.
Thank you, Masood. And then you wanted to come in there, and perhaps you could sort of talk about digital transformation as you see it. I think you're on mute.
Sorry, I will just add on to what Steve said earlier. Digital transformation, or digital, is the digital twin or digital to the physical organization. So we are talking about from the perspective that where all the processes are integrated rather than working in silos, the human aspect and the robotic aspect is collaborating together, and analytics are being done by the systems, and the human's intelligence is used not to collect the data, rather to make knowledgeable decisions and analyze and retrieve knowledge out of it. And from the data perspective, as Masood mentioned, the humongous amount of data which is now being generated, especially in oil and gas and throughout all of the industries, it is humanly not possible to, and digital transformation is basically to enable us to interpret and dissect that data and make a meaningful meaning out of it.
Okay, thank you very much. Sinatan, how do you see digital transformation from your perspective? You know, we'll go into e-learning a little bit later, but what is your sort of broad picture? And I'll then ask us a question, because we have a question that's come in about AI. But Sinatan, how do you see digital transformation from your perspective?
Yes, David, digital transformation, I saw it from our, for the oil and gas. Normally, during I start e-learning and I start training for my UEDs, I start with them to do hard copy, which is the engineering manual, it was paper with the classroom and this. Then I found this is very boring with them, or maybe cannot help them to give and to deliver the information to them and within a sense. So then the idea came to have a digital help us in to add some video, to add some they can see the video from the site, video from the plants, gas plants. So digital help us. It's not just make it interested for them, the training, not only the normal method, the traditional method, which is the classroom with the instructor, with manual, they can read it. So once I switch with the digital, I found there is interest, there is information that can come to them easily. So from the e-learning, yes, I saw the digital information impact was very clear in this field.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. I'm pleased to see some questions coming in, and I'd like to make this as interactive as possible. So the first question, Steve, you were talking about AI and various different technologies that were being used. So we have a question that's come in. It says, "Did you start using AI in your bulk data handling and analysis and decision making?" So I suppose that applies maybe for you, Masood, or what your experience is of it, Steve. what are your examples of using AI, if at all?
Well, I mean, that's a great question, because when people say digital these days, a lot of times they're thinking about AI because it's become so prominent across sectors. AI, to me, when I define it, where people are talking about it, it can mean various things, but I look at machine learning, variations of machine learning, application of machine learning, like natural language processing and computer vision. So in the entire paradigm of bringing data from somewhere where you're collecting it with a sensor to a place where you're storing it to the analytics, AI can be applied. So the question, I think, alludes to some interesting points about getting the data. Sometimes your data are pretty dirty. You're missing data, you have wrong data, you need to find outliers. That's an application of AI before you even get to the point of trying to translate to business value with AI. So if you're using machine learning, you can apply it directly at the point of data collection. Another interesting area, which is very, very relevant for the sector, is natural language processing. So many data records are not digital. You know, they're on paper records, they're in forms, maybe an Excel file, they're in forms that cannot be directly analyzed. And so in order to make machine learning work for business value creation, you also have to apply artificial intelligence techniques to be able to bring the data into a digital format, which is itself not very easy. I mean, I'm trying to scan a record and make sure that you've got the right information content. That's difficult. So I think that's another part of the upstream part of AI, which is very relevant to machine learning applications, very relevant to the sector. In the sector itself, once you've got the data, then the opportunities to leverage machine learning, it becomes phenomenal, because as we know, machine learning is really about having volumes of data that can allow you to make some informed decisions about various business processes. So if you have, if you're using your own internal processes or you're working with a cloud provider, the tools that evolve around machine learning today in order to extract value, extract insights from data for applications is very strong. You know, ones that I see all the time and working with the organizations I work with in the sector is predictive maintenance. I mean, that's a very low-hanging fruit. You're trying to collect data from a machine. You're trying to see if those data are giving you insights as to when the machine may fail in the future, so you can save time and not going out and doing preventive maintenance or reactive, which is worse, shutting things down, before you're able to make that fix and then save your time or save your downtime. So I think across the spectrum, the question gets into how we utilize AI, machine learning, and I think the opportunities are pretty rich and vast.
Thank you, Steve. Masood or Adnan, what is your experience of sort of using AI? Have you had much experience of that?
Yeah, I will add into it that from the perspective when we are talking about robotic process automation, say for instance, and that basically works on the upfront where the bots or you can configure repetitive tasks on that. However, to transform those and do the connections and to read the like for instance uploading an OCR and transforming it into, as Steve says, natural language NLP. These are the things which basically makes the intelligence, and then the machine learning comes as more and more automatically the percentage of accuracy reaches. So we have seen that even 95% of accurate reading of the invoices, for instance, or reading of the ledgers, which are from the books. So that really makes a lot, and that reveals the human part from the perspective of doing those repetitive tasks. Okay,
thank you. Masood, do you have experience of using AI yourself, or?
Not yet, but okay. I think in the near future we have to enter to this world, and yeah, we start using machine learning, but still human is behind it. So yeah, it's very risky. You need to make sure that you have right skills and behind these machines to get the expensive decision making that you will result from the work that you do. It's the key. So you need to make sure that whatever system you put in place, it's in your towards your right decision taking for, especially for the exploration world. You need to make sure that you have all sort of data that it's useful and it's important to take a decision in order to drill an expensive well. You don't want to have a dry well, so you need to make sure that everything is put in place in terms of the data, analyzing, and you have experience, eyes behind these machines, making sure that interpreting correctly.
Okay, thank you. Senatan, do you have experience of using AI? Do you anticipate using it?
Maybe. No, up to now we don't have that experience too much.
Okay, you'll perhaps get into that at a later date. Interesting coming in, the questions coming in that talks about technologies. We've been talking about AI, and I'd like to sort of move us to talk about how far developed digital transformation is in this sector. But we've had a question that's also come in about digital twins and the role that predictive maintenance using digital twin will play while considering this in digital transformation. I've recently written a report myself about digital twins, so a question about digital twins is fantastic. So, Steve, have you got experience of sort of digital twins as one of those sort of technologies that you've been looking at?
Yeah, I think the sector in general is going to move toward digital twins because the idea of the twin, as you know, David, is to be able to replicate in silico a large-scale operation that you're doing physically. And once you have that ability and you're doing it robustly and you're collecting data and you can model the system and it's modeled correctly and you can start to predict ahead of time what's going to happen once you make changes to the system and figure out the outcomes and look at all the spectrum of not just the economic value of doing things, but the safety implications and the like, that's very important. And the question here with predictive maintenance, I think that's a natural starting point today because, we look at all the applications in the sector, the area which is very well developed, there's many companies serving it, and there's lots of things going on. Even ADNOC talking about what they're doing at Honeywell. It's a tremendous amount of work going on now to just get all those process equipment in the field where you can collect information about them and model exactly what is happening in essentially almost real time and figure out not only when the equipment's going to fail, but if in a broader system, you make a modification to that particular piece of equipment or a secondary piece of equipment, what is going to be the systemic effect? So I think with the digital twin, it's something that the oil and gas sector is now moving into. I personally think it's not just oil and gas. I think the digital twin is an idea. It's going to go into healthcare. It's going to be in oil and gas. It's going to be across smart cities. Anything that we can model and we can replicate in a machine and make an accurate prediction of the future about the system using the machine is fantastic. It'll be a huge value to all organizations. And so I think that's a great value that the oil and gas sector is now having and bringing this forward as a technology being used.
Great, thank you very much. Does anyone else have experience of digital twins?
Yeah, I would like to add that there are two types of digital twins used for engineering, manufacturing, or operations. One is the product twins, and the other is the operational or performance twins. And the benefits which basically are taken into consideration are monitor a constant stream of usage and performance data in real time. These are the things. Combine end-to-end life cycle data into digital threads. That's another. And what I can think of is drive innovations in R&D. That is another major aspect of use case for digital twins. Supply chain, asset management, service and logistics. These are all areas where digital twins is playing a very major role.
Okay, that's great. We have a number of questions that have been coming in on data, and I'll get to those. I'd like to talk about how far developed digital transformation is in the sector. Adnan, I know you sent me some really useful figures that talked about how well oil and gas companies are implementing against a digital transformation strategy, and Masood, we also talked about that as well. And then how do you see that sort of picture as how far developed digital transformation is in this sector?
See, David, the most interesting part is that if we go by the percentages, there are all the oil and gas sector within all the companies. The surveys have been done, and each and every one are at different stages of digital transformation, but the initiative is already there. for instance, 28% of the oil and gas companies are at this moment implementing one way or other any of the digital transformation strategy. Then 38% are like kind of in the way that of the stage where they are developing a digital transformation, but not yet have started implementation. Then 23% are in the process of developing a digital strategy, and 11% are like kind of they have not started, but they want to have a digital strategy established and built within their core strategic functions.
Okay, thank you very much. And Masood, how do you see, you know, how far developed digital transformation is in the sector? You know, perhaps anecdotally, or perhaps, you know, looking at things yourself.
Yes, I think it's developed very well. As I mentioned, last year was a very difficult year that everybody put everybody in a very difficult time. We can't say overnight that if you didn't align yourself with the change, you will have no business. Yeah, so it was very difficult. Digital transformation is something that all sectors are following, and oil and gas, as I said, is a little bit traditional sector, but without it, it has a lot of value. People saw that the value of digital transformation when they had the decision to move to this direction, found out that a lot of less cost and the value at the end of the day. So just talking about the example in our organization, we had a journey of, let's say, 5 years when we started our growth plan to start it with the digitizing our legacy data. Without digitizing, we saw that it's very difficult to move. We have 40 years data exist. We have to digitize it in order to talk to the world virtually. So we had a lot of good results out of it. We signed 3 blocks onshore with a reputable company called ENI. Because of that, we had a farm out. We had a VDR, a virtual data room, that everybody looked at the same time. Data that we digitized. So it was a successful journey, I would say. All digital transformation was the main part of this journey. When we also last year discovered the new gas field after 4 decades in the area. It was a really difficult time when we announced the discovery, and then after a couple of days, the world lockdown started, and really it was tough for us to how we will continue to develop this field and how continue to produce from it while we are entering the lockdown. But have a lot of story that we successfully went through this difficult year, and we come out with as there was nothing. For sure, this is the huge effort that we had from top management to our IT people that helped us keep our people around the world working in the workstation, which is in Sharjah, connected 24/7, was really not easy. So yeah, so this is the story that I want to share with you guys, and really encouraging everyone that this is the direction that we need to take. This is it has a lot of value. That's proved the value of this technology that we to go at. Yes, we have a lot of downside. Yes, but it's we should always calculate the risk and see what is the potential of the risk to reduce it and to tackle the risk that always. Everything you introduce to your life, it has a pros and cons. So you need to be aware of it, and you need to work with it. So just to avoid having issues.
Okay, thank you, Masood. Steve, what's your view from Khalifa University in terms of how far you see digital transformation being developed in the sector? Do you have any sort of figures or research on that?
Yeah, well, I think from my observation, the digital notion has started several years ago. And so at one point it was about we need to do digital. Now it's a matter of almost every organization is doing digital in some way, has already been said. The challenge to overcome, and it goes back to my original opening point, the idea of being digital, transforming digitally versus doing things digitally is where the major steps need to be taken. Because I don't know of any organization that's not doing at least proof of concept across multiple different digital technologies and trying to see if they work at a small scale. The real challenge is when you figure out how to take those proof of concept, which seem promising, and scale them up. And scaling up is not always easy because when you're doing a proof of concept, you may be able to collect data, which is usable for that small scale assessment. And then when you want to get in your operational systems and you want to start utilizing the technology on a regular basis, maybe the data is not able to be accessed that easily. Maybe you're not comfortable with the levels of cybersecurity you have around the data and the way it's going to be accessed. Maybe the kind of partnerships you need to bring in the data for continual upgrading of the algorithms is not available. So I think the transition now is going up forward, but the hiccup is trying to move all the organizations now trying to become digital away from just doing proof of concept and getting stuck toward trying to bring those proof of concept into mainstream operations and being strategic with it. So my closing view on this is that it's happening. It's just we're in that period now where trying to get the true business value from digital is the hurdle we jumped.
So in terms of being able to foster and encourage digital transformation, what needs to happen? How do you go about planning that? Adnan, I think you might have sort of looked at this in your roles. How do you plan digital transformation?
See, from my perspective, I would say a couple of steps which I can list down. Oil and gas companies basically should kind of benchmark themselves against their peers and in the same sector to determine different priorities and focus areas within digital transformation, and they should do it in an effort to basically identify their relative strengths and weaknesses, understand competitive gaps and threats to their business, gauging where they can gain a competitive advantage, or prioritizing their investment focus. Another very important aspect is that at this very moment where all the initiatives are towards digital transformation, it is eminent to create like kind of a dedicated or centralized leadership, maybe a digital transformation office or which basically the purpose is to do the governance and to provide the leadership sponsorship from the executive aspect. And also another aspect is that put more emphasis on technology and back it up by larger budgets. Budget cuts are there, yes, oil and gas sector there is, but in the IT transformation and the returns are very high. So this is an area where budget cuts should not be done. And another area which I would say is change management. Digital transformation do create disruption. So the change management strategy and a very formal and stringent change management has to be enforced and should be in place to capitalize and to walk through and successfully implement digital transformation. Involving workforce is another area. So, invest in their capabilities, implement trainings to upskill current employees, because if the workforce is going along with you and they are in alignment with it, the digital transformation areas really outrun their benefits in this aspect.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to move us on to talk about the impediments to digital transformation. We talk about doing digital transformation and planning it. So, what do we think are the main impediments to digital transformation? I know the last year particularly hasn't been sort of very easy, and COVID has made life sort of difficult. I know, Masood, that's been an experience for you. Perhaps you'd like to sort of talk about the impediment to digital transformation that COVID has brought for you.
Yes, as I mentioned, it was a difficult time. I wanted to add something in the previous one.
Sure.
Which, the value that we got from the digital transformation, it's enough for decision makers to not think twice, to invest on this technology and use for it. I mean, last year was a free example of free opportunity that everybody entered, and still we are in. That when if we didn't invest on the IT infrastructure, we couldn't continue the business. And as I mentioned, that we were maybe unlucky that we discovered in our new field when we are entering the very difficult time that we need to work remotely, and we need to have really patient and make sure that everybody can work to produce the development plan that we have, which is end up with. I like to show you that the big book we produced at the end from all people worked. Before we used to thank the people who's technical. Now we are thanking everyone who has a contribution, starting with the IT. So the world has changed, and last year changed the meaning of our work, which we are talking about now, and people everybody is talking about the digital transformation. Yeah, the challenges, as I mentioned, is there, always there, and you always you worry that how you will continue as before. But to be honest with you, we had the productivity double or triple time during this. This was the amazing part of the change that last year we had. So yes, always we have a challenge. We changed the culture, the adaptation that we need to have to make sure that everybody can accept the change while you're working without physical interaction, especially with the geology. You talk about something 4 or 5 kilometers underground. You need to be an artist and working remotely to talk to each other to align views on something that you are taking a decision which is multi-million-dollar down the road. So yes, this is really a live example, I would say, we had recently. And
okay, I think Masood's frozen there, but we can pick that up. Adnan, I know you were telling me about the impediments as you see them. Would you like to pick up on what Masood's been saying?
Yeah, if we go into it, like there is a big challenge of from where to start, or knowing how and where to start, or there are like concerns establishing the right metrics, or which initiative or which process needs to be the candidate for digital transformation. Another thing is failure, or fear of failure. That's also one aspect. So I would say that the way to out of it is to create a framework for identifying and prioritizing your digital transformation initiatives. Create process maps, create process profiles, create digital transformation use cases, prioritize and impact analysis. And these are the things which basically drive them by key process indicators, critical success factors, and the metrics to evaluate digital transformation implementation. So it's not only that reach to the correct candidate, or to find the processes which basically are the ideal for digital transformation, the characteristics which needs to be looked into, volume involved in complexity, risks, criticality of it, the time which is being used, the time to manually or the current process, and the time which you are anticipating or you envision after the digital transformation. So there should be benefits, there should be cuts, either in the productivity, increase in productivity, or there should be a cut in your time to market, say for instance, or there should be cost benefits in it. And these are the things. Another reason, impediment or reason for failure of digital transformation are under investments or under prioritizations. So that is also, there are like, after the POC stage comes that now the budgets are needs to be allocated, so to go. And that's where those challenges are. And why that happens is lack of leadership and or vision at the top level. So that basically hampers digital transformation. Lack of skills, insufficient training, and also and another interesting aspect of it is interoperability with legacy technologies. Oil and gas is full of legacy systems. And they are running all in silos. Not all the APIs or not all latest technologies are being supported by those systems. So there we need to identify how the low code or zero code technologies are the ones which basically can do the linkage between them. So these are the things how I see it. Then on the other side, I would say work with the external advisory firms. No need to do all by yourself or try to invent the wheel. There is a lot of IP available. Make use of it. Leverage third-party outsourcing solutions. Collaborate with them. It is now a kind of a two-way channel where your vendors basically benefit out of you and you benefit from the vendor.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to move us on now to talk about e-learning, and this is very much Mr. Sinitan Atala's area. So I know you've been working on this e-learning project. Really like to hear about it. So how did the project come about and what did it involve?
Regarding e-learning, as I said at the beginning, e-learning, it was application and then developed in-house with our group. So as I said before, we had a traditional training, which had been in the manual and been in the structure and been in the classroom. So after what we see, we saw it. This is a traditional and boring for this trainee, for the engineer or UDs to the rest to be listened. So we think about how to digitalize it, how to make it digital. Actually, the idea, it was from 2018, and to start from this making the engineering manual from hard copy to digitals. But as the pandemic last year, it's accelerated and make it very fast. We move on to digitals because we want to have a self-learning. We want to have a safe distance for each our classmate or our engineer. So this pandemic really help us, or maybe make us to accelerate and make our faster to go to digitals, since we are as a project service team, we are dealing with hard copy, with drawing, with design. So we are not interested in that field, digitalizer. It will not help us. But in the training field, we found that it's helpful for us, make it easy for us, help us in the pandemic. We didn't stop our training during the pandemic. Each one can do his training from his home or from his work with the saving distance. So the idea came from that perspective, and we transfer all these 110 topic it was in the engineering manual, we transfer it to the digitals, and we keep it in the portal for our groups. So this is the idea came from that one. What we got benefit from this, maybe if you want me to continue, I can continue.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I was going to say, what have you learned from doing it?
Yeah, we got really a lot of benefits from having the e-learning application. We had and make the self-learning for each body can train himself without any instructor, make it easy at any time, any location can access, which is saving our instructor, saving our overhead for instruction, trainer. Also, we get the benefit that we have a data. We raise it for us and for any other comer later on. This is the idea of e-learning that we get. Thank you.
And the business impact it's had?
Yes, in our business, really, we found that, as I said, we save our cost of our trainer. Before we used to have some trainer from outside, make a training outside. Now we have training inside our group, and we save our expert people, seniors, specialists like us. We are training our people about the subject matter where we have developed. So it was adding back to our overhead, our cost.
Okay, thank you very much. So we've been having some questions coming in, and I'd like to sort of perhaps ask you the panel if they would answer some of these questions. We have a couple that talked about data. One says, I've witnessed multiple data-driven solutions, the principals of which find it very hard to implement their systems in GCC markets, given that most E&P companies in the region are reluctant to share data, and in a lot of cases, historical data is inaccessible. We're asking for your thoughts about that. And then another one about data. There is so much data available, but it's of an uneven quality and can come from multiple platforms and formats that may not necessarily allow interoperability. How are organizations looking at aggregating data on a format agnostic platform that allows for scalability and provides open source APIs for niche and bespoke insights? Steve, I don't know, have you come across that? You have got some thoughts about data there?
Yeah, I think, these days data is fundamental to digital, because if you're talking about machine learning, you're talking about needing massive amounts of data to train a system to get value from it. So when I mentioned earlier, we have this Microsoft Energy Core, this consortium essentially was formed to try and push digitalization forward in the sector. Really, most of the discussion is about how organizations, whether they be the IOCs, the NOCs, the service providers, whoever's holding data, can collaborate and can coordinate with technology providers, which run the cloud platforms and have all the right tools to clean up data, how you all come together so that you can find the right interface on the data to leverage it. So if you think you have proprietary information, whatever, bring it to the point where all can benefit from it, because the real business value you can extract is not really, companies argue about this, it's not really the data per se, it's how you use it. So if you're the most innovative company in applications for utilizing the data, and you can benefit from your data, you can benefit from the data of someone across the ocean or close by, across the border, and you're all getting the same ability to build your own proprietary mechanisms to deliver value, I think it's fair. And so that's the argument being made, is that as an organizations coming together to try to push the whole sector forward in digital, there needs to be the ability to share data. There needs to be platforms. There's an open data platform for subsurface data universe that's been put together with multiple organizations. We talk about it quite a bit because there is an example of where data from multiple entities is coming together up to the point where it can be differentiated to create value through the types of applications you build, and everyone can get value from it. If you don't do it that way, I think all these questions about, do you have enough data? Is the data clean? What are you going to be able to build? What are you going to be able to build with your own bespoke information about an individual field, for instance? This is going to go on forever, because to build a robust system which is safe and reliable, you need lots of information with all the corner cases involved, right? So the more information you've got as a sector, the more you can be comfortable that digital transformation is possible, because you have reliable, good data. And that said, I'd say don't forget the role of the technology providers. You look at the Microsoft and these type of companies that are now offering to partner they add a lot of value because no organization, if you ask me, is going to be able to build the cloud resources and build the tools for types of analyses to be done moving forward, as well as these companies. So again, there's a role for the service providers, IOCs, NOCs, and large tech companies to try to make all this work around this one question. How do you get the data, make it available, and use it well? And that's going to be a question we're going to have to try and answer for many years, I think.
Thank you. Masood, what's your experience in terms of data and data quality and being able to manage that data effectively and allow interoperability?
Yeah, we have experience, as I mentioned, that when we digitized data, we couldn't digitize it without QC this data, because we had a lot of copies and a lot of the seismic tapes, which was not in the good condition. So we had to run a QC team, as I would say, specialized people who understand the E&P side of it, which is G&G and well side, to look at each data, which took 6 to 8 months. So we started we started with the data management team that we had in place to look at this task, to look at it. And we had around 75 to 80% of data useful. The rest was just a copy or was already obsolete. So the QC, without doing the QC, you can have a good data that you be useful. And I'm really proud that a lot of big IOCs look at our data when we had the license now without any comment on the quality of the data. That means we did a very good homework, and we went through the right steps to do to have a valuable data in place for your growth plan. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. I've had a couple of questions that have come in about the technologies that are being used in digital transformation. One is about blockchain. The other one is about virtual and augmented reality, about VR being an integral part of the many industries when it comes to training. So I appreciate we're beginning to sort of run out of time now, but I just wondered, maybe Adnan, what your thoughts are on the different sort of types of technologies like blockchain and virtual reality, augmented reality, that are being used from a digital transformation perspective.
Yeah, sure. I would say rather than going into augmented reality, or I would say extended reality. So extended reality is basically extended reality realm is encompassing virtual reality, augmented reality, and mixed reality all together. And I can tell you that 25% of the oil and gas sector is currently deploying, or and the 32% are maybe are considering it to be deployed in. And the use cases are like, for instance, remote monitoring of the assets. So, or VR technology being used for training the manpower on the asset without because it's like kind of a safety requirement that they should be well trained. So while they are not exposed to the risk, they can do it in a virtual environment. So that's another use case which is being. Then the other technology which they blockchain. So from the blockchain perspective, distributed ledger technologies, that actually also touches the security aspect of it, that where the use of sharing and storing of validated and unchangeable information. So that's basically what blockchain is doing and is purposely built for. Distributed ledger technologies governed by the consensus protocols. So that is another aspect.
Okay.
And from the previous one, which the question which we were discussing from the data perspective, Masood finish it. So I would like to add onto it from the perspective that if we look into it, the integration between different systems intelligent business process management suites. Look at from the perspective of integration platforms as a service. Those are a lot of cloud services, vendors, which are giving integration platforms. They are available. Look into it. And if you want to have a guidance, go for IDC, maybe Gartner or Forrester. They are issuing and they are validating their different vendors across their capabilities. They are creating critical capability metrics, which you can assess them against. And also from the perspective of compliance, there was a discussion. Go for vendor assessment from the Cloud Security Alliance has issued vendor assessment metrics. Then from ISACA, Information Security and Audit Control Association, COBIT, and also Exelos, ITIL is also. So these are the governing bodies which basically are vendor agnostic. So you would not have the biasness from the vendor, and you can have a guiding advice, dependable guiding advice, which you can leverage on.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate we're beginning to run out of time. We have a lot of questions, and hopefully we'll be able to get answers to those questions that we haven't been able to tackle. But just to go around the panel now and just offer your closing thoughts on digital transformation and what you expect 2021 to bring. Sinatan, your projects and your e-learning, what is the big thing for you in 2020-21?
Yeah, David, we are continuing our learning, but so this is a continuous journey for the training of UDs. As I said, it's developed from the traditional to the preparing the classroom until we move on to digitals. The thing is that I like what Mr. Said talked about, VR training. We may have this, it helps us in our training. This is a good idea. We may put it in our plan to continue our journey for the training. And we are continuing just now adding topic to the digital's data. Now we have 110 topics between design, cost control, planning, HSC, all related to the project execution. So now we finished 100 topic. We are going to continue for the topic serving our UDs. But I like that the idea came during the discussion for the VR. We may it's gonna be from our future idea.
Okay, thank you very much. And very briefly, Steve, how you see things going on? I know Adnan's got another panel to go to as well, so I don't want to hold him up. But final, just brief run through how you see things going for this year, Steve.
Well, we'll continue. So absolutely, we'll continue. There's a technological side, there's a human capital side, a culture side of transformation. At KU, what we've done with the local company ADNOC is we've created an R&D board. Digital is a big part of that. We've got projects. We're actually developing the VR system now to do the training on these sort of very challenging cases that you need experienced people to convey to you. You can put those in the system and you can upgrade your operator skills through the virtual reality system. I agree with both the panelists here. That's a great place to be. We have to be utilizing that. Computer vision, we're doing lots of that for corrosion detection, trying to figure out the composition of flare gases. So we're now going forward with the partners to develop more of these POCs. I said previously that should never be the stopping point. The next is going to try to figure out how you're going to take all these technologies, all these developments you're doing to scale. And I think in 2021, organizations across the sector are going to continue to do that, simply because this is the time when transformation is happening and transitions happening in energy and oil and gas companies. And they really need to be very competitive in their business, their core business, and digital is the way to do that. So that's how I see the year unfolding.
Okay, Masood, a very quick comment on how you see 2021 going.
I will add to my colleague that 2021 is the continuation of what we have started last year. We have a lot of lessons learned. I don't want to say that we are post COVID. Hopefully, I mean, soon with the vaccinations and the change in organization that's happened, that you have allocated the budget for for digital transformation towards to have a norm in your business. So it will be, we have a lot of ambitions. Still, we are continuing. We said that the journey's just started, even if it's 5 years, but we have more to come. We have more license rounds that we need to be more VDRs in place to continue as we did before. We have very good experience now. Before even pandemic, as I mentioned, that we had license round in 2018, but so now we will utilize our experience, our experts to have more emission future, near future coming this year or 5 years, next 5 years.
Okay, thank you very much. And then I know you have another panel to go to, so I'll let you give them the benefit of your experience. I'd just like to say thank you for everyone for their insight during today's panel, for the questions that have come in. I hope you found it useful, and look forward to talking to you about digital transformation again in the oil and gas world. Thank you very much for your insight.
Thank you, David.
Yes. Bye.